Famous people who passed away in 1769. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Edward Holyoake. He was born in June 1689 and he died in June 1769. His age was 79 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an American Congregational clergyman and the 9th president of Harvard College. In 1736, he was appointed and then approved by the governor, Belcher, as a choice as president of Harvard College. At first, there were about 100 students at the Harvard being taught by the president and 4 tutors. The ancient system of each tutor taking a college class through all subjects in a curriculum was ended, and by 1767, tutors had become specialists instructing students in particular subjects. Chief Pontiac. He was born in 1720 and he died in April 1769. His age was 49 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was assassination. He was an Ottawa war chief, known for his role in the war named for him from 1763 to 1766, leading Native Americans in an armed struggle against the British in the Great Lakes region due to, among other reasons, dissatisfaction with British policies. It followed the British victory in the French and Indian War, the American front of the 7 Years' War. Pontiac's importance in the war that bears his name has been debated. John Gilbert Cooper. He was born in August 1722 and he died in April 1769. His age was 46 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was kidney disease. He was a British poet and writer. Cooper first published poetry in 1742, occasionally, until he became a regular contributor to the museum, which was published by Robert Dodsley. His contributions to Dodsley's journal was under Nom de Plume of Philaret. Pope Clement XIII. He was born in March 1693 and he died in February 1769. His age was 75 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stroke. He was the head of the Catholic Church and the ruler of the Papal States from 6 July 1758 to his death in February 1769. He was installed on July 1758. His pontificate was overshadowed by the constant pressure to suppress the Society of Jesus, but despite this, he championed their order and also proved their greatest defender at the time. Andrew Lauder. He was born in May 1702 and he died in March 1769. His age was 66 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a burgess of the royal borough of Lauder and also of Musselburgh during the Jacobite disturbances in Scotland, notably 1730 and 1745. Sir Andrew was noted as a government man. During the latter uprising, a warrant was issued at Holyrood House, dated 18th October 1745, in the name of Charles, Prince of Wales, Regent of Scotland, England, France, and Ireland, to George Gordon of Beldoni to proceed to Sir Andrew Lauder's manor at Fountain Hall, requisitioning Henry Paget, 2nd Earl of Uxbridge. He was born in January 1719 and he died in November 1769. His age was 50 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British nobleman who held several key positions in the British governance. He succeeded his grandfather as Earl of Uxbridge in 1743. He was appointed a deputy lieutenant for Staffordshire on July 7, 1757, and died unmarried on 16th November 1769. Jean-Baptiste Chappe de Terroche. He was born in March 1722 and he died in August 1769. His age was 47 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was fever. He was a French astronomer best known for his observations of the transition of Venus in 1761 and 1769. He conducted significant astronomical expeditions. He was also known for his observations of the transits of Venus and gave solution to the problem of the determination of the size of the solar system. Charles Sackville, 2nd Duke of Dorset. He was born in February 1711 and he died in January 1769. His age was 57 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British politician who sat in the House of Commons between 1734 and 1765. He then succeeded to the peerage as a Duke of Dorset. He was also an opera impresario and cricketer. He was bitterly opposed politically to his father and ventured to oppose his candidate in the boroughs he controlled. Johann Friedrich Handish. He was born in October 1705 and he died in March 1769. His age was 63 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a German cartographer and mathematician. Handish also held the title of Royal Mathematician to the King Augustus III of Poland. Handish also made a copper etching that depicted a Galiot that has been built in Elbing in 1738 and was named Die Stadt Elbing. Marc-Antoine Lougier. He was born in January 1713 and he died in August 1769. His age was 56 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a Jesuit priest until 1755, then a Benedictine monk. He is best known for his essay on architecture, published in 1753. In 1755, he published the second edition with a famous, often reproduced illustration of a primitive hut. His approach to discuss some familiar aspects of Renaissance and post-Renaissance architectural practice, which he describes as faults. These faults induce his commentary on columns, the entablature, and on pediments. Anna Canalis de Cumiana. She was born in April 1680 and she died in April 1769. Her age was 88 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was a playwright and the morganatic wife of Victor Amadeus II, King of Sardinia. She was created Marquise of Spinio, receiving education as a nun at the convent of Visitation in Turin. She was introduced to the ducal court of Savoy in 1695. She was made a lady in waiting to Marie Jane of Savoy, mother of the ruler Victor Amadeus II. Antonio Genovese. He was born in November 1713 and he died in September 1769. His age was 55 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an Italian writer on philosophy and political economy. He was a scholar in classical literature, theology, and metaphysical sciences. Later in his life, nonetheless, he started to disdain his old theoretical culture, substituting it gradually with a study focused on practical aims. Elizabeth Steenkrona. She was born in January 1714 and she died in June 1769. Her age was 55 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was a Swedish countess and writer, known for her significant cultural contributions in Sweden, though her published works were formerly anonymously published. She was well known to be the writer. Except for her published work, she has become known for the unpublished work Advice to My Children, 274 pages of advice to her surviving children to how they should live their lives, written in 1760 to 1763. Daniel Finch, 8th Earl of Winchelsea. He was born in May 1689 and he died in August 1769. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a prominent Troy politician and statesman. In 1710, he was elected as a member of Parliament for Rutland and served as comptroller of the royal household from 1725 to 1730. He held the seat until he succeeded to earldom in 1730, and in 1739 he supported the founding of the Foundling Hospital in London, a charity providing home and education for some of the capital's many abandoned children, and was one of the original governors. Edmund Hoyle. He was born in 1672 and he died in August 1769. His age was 97 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an English writer best known for his works on rules and play of card games. The phrase "according to the Hoyle," meaning strictly according to the rules, came into the language as a reflection of his broadly perceived authority on the subject. Use of the phrase has since expanded to any appeal to a putative authority. Michel Ferdinand Albert Darry. He was born in December 1714 and he died in September 1769. His age was 54 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a French astronomer, physicist, and Freemason. As an astronomer and physicist, he was particularly interested in scientific instruments and used most of his income to build and collect them. His estate contains a remarkable amount of rare and curious items collected from Egypt, Greece, China, including Etruscan vases of all types, antique bronze, and natural history specimen. Anna Carolina Ozalska. She was born in November 1707 and she died in September 1769. Her age was 61 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was a Polish noblewoman and adventuress, born as an illegitimate daughter of Augustus II the Strong, Elector of Saxony, Grand Duke of Lithuania, and King of Poland. By Henriette Renaud, she became hereditary Duchess of Schleswig, Holstein, Sonderburg-Beck by marriage. She was also known for her beauty and influence in Polish and Saxon courts. Diana Adelaide de May. She was born in February 1712 and she died in November 1769. Her age was 57 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was the third of the 5 famous de Nesle sisters, 4 of whom would become the mistress of King Louis XV of France. She was his mistress on and off from 1742 to 1745. Constantine Mavrocordatos. He was born in February 1711 and he died in November 1769. His age was 58 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a great noble who served as Prince of Wallachia and Prince of Moldavia at several intervals between 1730 and 1769. As a ruler, he issued reforms in the laws of each of the 2 Danubian principalities, ensuring a more adequate taxation and series of measures amounting to the emancipation of serfs and more humane treatment of slaves. Joseph Frederick Ernst. He was born in May 1702 and he died in December 1769. His age was 67 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was the fifth Prince Hohenzollern-Sigmaringen. He ruled from 1715 to 1769. He managed to befriend with the electorate of Bavaria, and after the election, Emperor Charles VII appointed him as an imperial Geheimrat. He was an avid hunter, and in 1727 he created the game of Park Josephslust in Sigmaringen. In 1736, he modernized and remolded Sigmaringen Castle. He also embellished the local Knights' Hall and added portraits of all his ancestors. Christian Fertigott Jalad. He was born in July 1715 and he died in December 1769. His age was 54 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a German poet, one of the forerunners of the golden age of German literature that was ushered in by Lessing. He was esteemed and venerated by his students and others who knew him, due in great part of his personal character. He was known to be unflaggingly amiable and generous, and of unaffected piety and humility. Birgit Sophie Gabel. She was born in 1746 and she died in August 1769. Her age was 23 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was childbirth complications. She was a Danish noblewoman, prominent cultural patron in the 18th century Denmark. According to contemporary reports, Johann and Friedrich attempted to make her the official royal mistress of the king in 1769, claiming that it would benefit the mentally ill king's health to have an intelligent woman as a lover, and the nation, as it would make the king more easy to control. Nicholas Taaffe, 6th Viscount Taaffe. He was born in 1685 and he died in December 1769. His age was 84 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an Irish-born courtier and soldier who served the Habsburgs in Lorraine and Austria. He entered the Habsburgs' army, serving at the Philipsburg in Baden and in the campaign against France in 1734 and 1735, the Turkish War of 1736, and was present in the Battle at Fort St. Elizabeth and the Battle of Selman. He succeeded to the peerage in 1738 and was promoted to Major General in 1739. Kamo Nomabuchi. He was born in April 1697 and he died in October 1769. His age was 73 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a scholar, poet, and philologist during the mid-Edo period Japan. Through his research into the spirit of ancient Japan, through his studies of the Maya, Yoshu, and other works of ancient literature, he expounded on the theory of Magokoro, which he held to be fundamental to the history of Japan. Ayozai. He was born in 1754 and he died in May 1769. His age was 15 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was assassination. He was the emperor of Ethiopia from 1755 to 1769 and a member of the Solomonic dynasty. He was the infant son of Ilyasu II. King Surempha of Assam. He was born in 1701 and he died in 1769. His age was 68 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was the fourth son of Rudra Singha, became the king of the Ahom kingdom after the death of his brother. He was the third son of Mahanimala Gohanan and was considered ineligible for kingship as his face was pitted with smallpox marks according to the norm established after Surekpa Laura Roja, and Ahom prince had to be free from any physical disability, defects, or deformities to become a king. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel.